She was not merely a queen. She was a legend forged in silk, strategy, and survival. Cleopatra VII ruled not just with beauty, but with brilliance. In a world dominated by male emperors, generals, and tyrants, she commanded armies, outwitted rivals, and seduced the two most powerful men in Rome. Not out of love, but for empire. Her name still echoes through history with scandal and awe. But beneath the myths of serpents and seduction lies a ruler whose story is far more complex and far more human. She walked through marble halls while kingdoms crumbled. She ruled with the poise of a goddess while enemies circled like vultures. And when her empire stood on the brink, she didn't kneel. She negotiated. But power built on charm and diplomacy is fragile. Alliances shatter, armies fail, and legends, no matter how radiant, eventually fall. This is not just the story of Cleopatra the icon. It's the rise and fall of the last true pharaoh. A woman who dared to rule like a man in a collapsing world of empires. And the truth behind her fall is even more dramatic than the myth. The world remembers Cleopatra as a temptress. But history, if you dig past the Roman propaganda, remembers her as something far more dangerous, competent. She was the last ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a line of Greek monarchs who governed Egypt for nearly 300 years. Born into a royal family known more for its infighting than its brilliance, Cleopatra stood out early. She spoke at least 9 languages, including Egyptian, a rarity in her dynasty. She studied astronomy, mathematics, philosophy. She was raised not just as a princess, but as a strategist. By the time she took the throne, Egypt was no longer the unstoppable power it had once been. The Roman Republic was expanding rapidly, swallowing lands and kings. Her nation was rich, but vulnerable. Her court was cultured, but divided. To survive, Cleopatra would have to master the art of power in a male-dominated, collapsing world. She didn't do it with armies alone. She used image, intellect, and influence. She reshaped how a woman could rule and how history would remember her. But power in ancient Egypt came at a cost. And Cleopatra would soon learn, the higher you rise, the more ruthless the fall. The rise to power. When Cleopatra took the throne in 51 BCE, she was just 18. Egypt was bankrupt and under heavy Roman influence. Her father's death made her co-ruler with her 10-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIII, whom she was forced to marry. But Cleopatra had no intention of being a figurehead. She ruled independently, sidelined her brother, and quickly provoked a power struggle. 3 years later, a coup by Ptolemy's advisors drove her into exile. But her opportunity came with the arrival of Julius Caesar, who was chasing Pompey during Rome's civil war. After Pompey was murdered by Ptolemy's court to gain Caesar's favor, the plan backfired. Caesar was outraged. Cleopatra seized the moment. Famously smuggled into Caesar's presence inside a rug, she captivated him with her intelligence and political savvy. Caesar backed her claim to the throne. A civil war followed, ending with Cleopatra and Caesar's forces defeating Ptolemy XIII, who drowned while fleeing. Cleopatra returned to power with her younger brother Ptolemy XIV as nominal co-ruler. She gave birth to Caesarion, likely Caesar's son, and embraced her role as pharaoh, adopting Egyptian traditions, presenting herself as the goddess Isis, and winning public support. But her fate and Egypt's still depended on Rome. And Caesar wouldn't live forever. For Cleopatra, aligning with Julius Caesar was a strategic move for Egypt's survival. Caesar was Rome's most powerful man, and Cleopatra knew Egypt needed Rome's favor, not just military strength, to stay independent. Their relationship shocked both empires. Egyptians saw her as divine, while Romans viewed her as a dangerous foreign queen. In 46 BCE, Cleopatra visited Rome with Caesarion, her son by Caesar. Living in luxury outside the city, she stirred fascination and fear. The Roman elite worried Caesar might make her queen and Caesarion his heir. 2 years later, Caesar was assassinated. Cleopatra fled Rome with Caesarion and returned to Egypt. Soon after, her brother Ptolemy XIV died, likely poisoned, and Cleopatra made Caesarion co-ruler, securing her grip on power. Meanwhile, Rome plunged into civil war between Mark Antony and Octavian. Cleopatra needed a new Roman ally. In 41 BCE, Antony summoned her to Tarsus. She arrived on a golden barge as the goddess Isis, seductive, powerful, unforgettable. Their relationship blended passion with politics. Cleopatra supported Antony's campaigns with resources. In return, he gave her land, legitimacy, and 3 children. He declared her Queen of Kings and Caesarion, King of Kings. Together, they envisioned a new empire. But in Rome, Octavian was watching and preparing for war. By 34 BCE, Cleopatra and Mark Antony were building a dynasty, blending Egypt's wealth with Roman influence. Octavian, Caesar's heir, saw them as a threat and launched a propaganda war. Cleopatra was painted as a seductress, Antony as a traitor. When his will revealed he wished to be buried in Alexandria, Rome turned against him. In 32 BCE, war was declared on Cleopatra. At the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, their fleet was defeated. Cleopatra and Antony retreated. In 30 BCE, Octavian invaded Egypt. Believing Cleopatra dead, Antony took his own life. She died days later. How remains a mystery. With her death, Egypt fell to Rome and the Pharaonic era ended. Cleopatra's body was never found, fueling myth and legend. Romans saw a threat, artists, a tragic queen. In truth, she was a brilliant ruler who preserved Egypt's independence for over 20 years. Her legacy endures, not as a seductress, but as a symbol of power, strategy, and resilience. Cleopatra ruled a dying world with brilliance, not brutality. She faced Rome with fire, not fear, and shaped history through intellect and strategy. Though her empire fell, her legacy endured. She was the last pharaoh and the first of something greater, a legend. Subscribe for more untold stories, ancient secrets, and forgotten legends. Cleopatra's name still burns,